I get the pleasure to welcome our next featured speaker, Mr. Zion. Second time working together. Welcome back. Thrilled for your talk
Hey,
today. For those of
hey,
you that don't
Brad.
know Zion, gotten to know Zion through his work with Shellfish, but he's here to tell you about some of the other cool stuff that he's been working on. So over to you whenever you're ready.
All right. Can you see these slides?
We sure can.
All right, brilliant. Um, so I'm going to talk to you guys today on a shorter side of this talk. We're going to do a little bit more of the technical side. You've heard some great information today already about the concept of a game, right? All of this great work by Dr. Lemon here. And you've also heard from Brad about how AI is changing much of this field rapidly. And when you mix these two things together, AI and a game, you have some interesting interactions. So today I want to talk about some of it. And I want to either dispel some pain or some worry many of you might have, but also kind of double down on that this is a very different game than it was a few years ago. So let's talk about it a little bit on the state of CTFs in the age of LLMs. So quickly, who am I? Who is this guy who is going to be yapping at you about CTFs? Well, I am an assistant professor at the University of Georgia. Very recently, in fact, I graduated with my PhD from Arizona State just this last May. I am also a visiting research faculty at the Air Force Research Lab. That's where I am currently. And I am a previous captain of Shellphish. In all of these areas, I do the same type of work, which is work on researching autonomous hacking, on decompilation, on reverse engineering. Essentially, how can we automate the things that hackers are so incredibly good at or help them do their job better so that we can find bugs faster, so we can do 0 days faster? And competing on Shellphish has really helped me kind of focus what we want to do in that area. But more important than all of these things, I am a hacker man. Much like yourself, all of you epic competitors, there's something different when you enter the space of hacking, when you need to figure out how to break things, how to understand things, how to do it competitively. And for the last decade or so, I have been competing in this competitions, capture the flags, much like all of you are training up for, which we will be doing greater and greater things for with Shellfish, is what I've been doing. So there's big questions now of what actually is a hacker. In 2026, you may look at the news and you may look at other competitions, and hackers may, in fact, just be a big, large language model, right? Your hacker man is actually just a guy who has ChatGPT and is really good at prompting. And so this has kind of been a big concept that has changed a lot of the field. I'll say it started in January. In January of 2026, we started seeing something change between all of us in this competition. And that is the use of LLMs in more than just a ChatGPT prompt, but in the use of agents. Well, exactly what does that mean? And how does it relate to what's really going on, right? Lots of these AI companies want to hype us up that these large language models are already expert hackers. And maybe they in fact are. So let's actually talk about it and what are some real data that's been happening during this time period of LLM insurgence, right? CTFs and autonomous hacking. How do they go together? What is it? What does this all mean? So let's first define what an agent is, just to really dispel what previously was ChatGPT. If you're still living in 2025, right, ChatGPT is something you use in the web browser. You paste in text, input is text, output is text. But in 2026, everyone uses agents, which is, of course, putting ChatGPT in something like Codex or Claude Code if you're a real hacker, and doing things with tools. For instance, here is Ghidra, a common hacking tool, a decompiler. And here a LLM agent is calling decompile main. So it can use tools that hackers traditionally use, or in other domains, it can use tools which are specific to those domains. For instance, if you're a doctor, maybe it can use something like using, like a heart rate sensor. It can do things like that. These are different tools. And then on the other end of this is some guy, there's me on the far left, who gives a good prompt like, please solve, make no mistakes. Um, of course, this is troubling because that prompt on the left-hand side is a very, very simple prompt. And in January, we saw a lot of people using this exact prompt, please solve, make no mistakes, with an agent that only had access to Bash. And these agents were able to do incredible things in CTFs. It was quite concerning. So for instance, here is what CTF time looked like in this period. We'll say between January up and through April. At the top of the CTF time leaderboard, which is the leaderboard for the top competitive hacking teams on the entire planet, we had this team called Kurak. Kurak is a team which only uses AI for autonomous solving. They are not necessarily an expert in this field at all. They're not really a very good hacker per se, but they use AI. So they are very much of this type of mindset where you say, please solve, make no mistakes. And between this period of January and April, we saw them at the top of the leaderboard, beating every single team who was run by humans and every team of experts, including Shellphish. Of course, we are not on this CTF time ranking now, um, and all the other teams from different countries. And that's really quite concerning. This hit a lot of people. There was a lot of rage that went on Twitter. A lot of people said, I'm quitting CTFs. It's over. There's autonomous solving. Now we speed up a few more months. We actually speed up to just 2 weekends ago. Let's talk about the hardest CTF on the planet, or what we refer to as the kind of Olympics of all of Capture the Flag, of the hacking community, where we pour it all into one thing, and that is DEF CON CTF, or DEF CON Finals. Just 2 weekends ago was DEF CON Qualifier. It is a qualifying competition where around 2,000 teams will compete for 12 slots in the finals. So it is really kind of a best of the best. Everyone comes here to compete. And everyone was wondering at the start of this competition, what is the impact of AI now? Are large language models going to run the entire game? How is hacking different? Because this is where the teams who are serious come back, right? They wake up, Shellphish comes out of hibernation and decides to play. In fact, we qualified, just happened 2 weekends ago. We qualified for DEF CON Finals again. This is our 22nd year qualifying for DEF CON Finals, the most qualifications in history. But the more important thing about this number is the history vision, or what we have seen over these 22 years, and how the competition continues to evolve. Because there have been phases that have changed Capture the Flag and then eventually change hacking. Because these hackers who play in these Capture the Flags and are at the top of this kind of area, they go on to become great leaders in this field. They work at DARPA, they work in the government, they work at top companies, they go on to found different labs. These are all the people who really run cybersecurity, and they're coming from these competitions. So this kind of gives us a way to see what's going to happen or what is actively happening. So DEF CON qualifiers just happened, right? Here's the final leaderboard from the end of the game. These are the teams that qualify, the top 12. You'll see Shellphish slides by there in 11. There's a lot of information here, but there's only 2 bits of really important info. The first thing I want you to look at is this indicator that the organizers required every team to mark, which is if the team was human-led AI, i.e. a significant portion of the competition was done with AI as an assistant or using AI to solve these challenges. You could also opt in to say that you were low AI usage, so very little use of ChatGPT or any agents, or you could even say you were no AI usage, which was on the rarer side. You'll find that every single team that qualified this year was actually a high AI user. That is the top 15 you'll see here, and this goes all the way into 35. So the top hackers on the entire planet are all heavy AI users right now in this hacking. And that really shows you, wow, how this is all shifting. The field has rapidly shifted. And I want to give you a little perspective on what that looked like inside of our team as well. But before we get to that, I just want to dispel a little bit of myths here, because a lot of teams are saying that, oh no, finals is going to have a bunch of people who qualify, who don't know what they're doing, who only use AI. They prompt a very simple prompt, and then all of a sudden they qualify. But here is the leaderboard of the top 12, the teams that went to finals between 2026 and 2025. You'll notice something interesting. There is actually a very, very high overlap. Most of the teams that were in 2025 qualifying, which was pre-LLM agents, actually qualified again in 2026, which is strange. That's anti-narrative, right? That is very different from what we were led to believe, that AI has made it so that anyone is a hacker. When in fact, that doesn't seem to be true based on these different finals results between 2025 and 2026. Actually, 75% of the teams that qualified in 2026 were already very good teams, world-class hackers, pre-LLM. There was only 3 teams that changed this, and many are believed to have come from other teams. So really, what was the impact here? If all of the teams from 2025 to 2026 remained and AI is changing the entire field, why is the leaderboard largely the same? Well, after talking to some teams and also our internal infrastructure, how we developed our own team of AI agents and our team of humans, we figured out that most teams right now are using AI agents in the way we are, which is making the most supreme automated hacker possible using the hacker knowledge that we personally have acquired over the last few decades. And that's really important because that's what all of you are doing right now. So let's talk about it, right? What happened to these agents? How did Shellphish do it? How are these other teams doing it? Well, the best hackers make the best hacking tools and the best hacking agents. That is kind of the gist of all of this. We talked to a few teams, we figured out what's going on. We are all using LLMs heavily, but somehow we are all still in the finals. And that's because we have all gone around this route of making AI agents that are more powerful than ever based on what we've already been doing for making our team better, which is making good hacker tools. And this is really shifting the game and how I think all of you should think about your training going into the future of how you become better hackers on a world-class level. It's not just about upping your own skill, but once you've taken that skill, encode it into tools that actually make your life better. An example of this, for those of you who do binary exploitation, is a ROPing thing, like ROP agent or a ROPper tool, right? There have been many ROP chain generators over the years. This is one example of a tool that makes your life better. So in 2026, right, this is what it's all about. The best builder wins. And that's actually kind of fun because hackers are also usually builders, except we make tools to break other things. So in 2026, the best teams are those who will be able to build the best hacking agent. And this is actually rather impactful because these agents are pretty good at finding 0 days as well. So Shellphish had its own hacking agent during this competition where there were 23 challenges. And it was kind of, I'll say, astonishing at how different it is this year of having a AI agent next to you. It's more like a teammate. It's not like a tool. It is a real thing you converse with, you interact with. Across the entire competition of 48 hours, it was used for almost all of those hours by 90 different people for over 1,135 messages, and it contributed to 23 exploits, a few of them autonomously, which we had to go back and solve due to the rules of the competition. Funny enough, here's a question from one of the people on our team who is pretty famous. He has found multiple 0 days in the Linux kernel, and you can see him talking to our AI agent and being like, what the heck, you've obtained RIP control, right? Like you're already here poning this binary, like give me the script. Right. So even he is a little astonished at how fast that this is moving. We're already in a period of craziness. So there's kind of two things I want to touch on what this agent looked like. Shelly is what we called it. Shelly was this AI agent we made for competition during DEF CON quals. First thing that was different about this is Shelly was something we talked to in our Discord. If you're making a new tool, make it easy for all of your teammates to use. Just slap it in a Discord with a webhook, something like that. Here is Shelly talking to one of my teammates, Klasm, and another teammate, Kanak, of Pwn College fame. These people are talking to Shelly, and Shelly's giving responses while directly reverse engineering the binary. So it has access to all of the hacking tools that we had. And that was really important because when you're going to develop your own hacking agent, something that will change the kind of way you hack, you need to give it more than just a good prompt. A good prompt will not make you world class, and it will not make an agent that is actually powerful enough to do this type of hacking. So I don't think you should be worried about the beginner challenges. You should be worried about this large scale. So how did you actually make an agent that's better? Well, you can encode a lot of the hacking knowledge you've generated over time. I encourage you to start making tools, to start writing down strategies for hacking. If you've ever learned from our own repo called How to Heap, which is heap exploitations for binary, this is actually what we powered our agent with and made it able to do heap exploitation by reading our own manual that we created for the community, or using different hacking tools. For instance, BinSync is something we made to connect two hackers and make them able to talk to each other while reverse engineering over like IDA or Ghidra. And in fact, all of these things are incredibly useful for humans and something you should do while you are on your hacking journey. What's fun about this is what you're doing for humans is actually incredibly relevant for making a hacking agent. And that's exactly what we did. because it takes a little bit more than just find prompts. You need to think like a hacker and teach your agent how to work like a hacker. And that usually means good tools, good strategies. So very briefly, what this looked like during the competition is we had our agent here at the top. It would get a binary, and then me and a different hacker, we would talk to this agent as it hacked while we were also hacking on the side, usually with other extra agents. So this guy is working in a loop. In one specific example, there was a binary that took up about 20% of the context of this LLM agent. That's actually not that much context. However, when an LLM agent has 20% of the context taken up, it's still going to keep working. It's still doing things. It's reverse engineering, it's thinking, it's writing its own thoughts to itself and then putting them back in. So 20% context can actually get filled up to 100 pretty fast when it starts thinking about it. In one instance, we saw that these agents had something called hyperfocus, where it thinks there's a bug in this very specific location. And it just keeps focusing on that bug and writes an exploit. The exploit fails. It keeps trying, writes a new exploit, same bug. It keeps thinking a bug. Well, in fact, that bug isn't a good bug. It's a false positive. It doesn't really exist there. Or it's just a bad bug. It doesn't get you a real exploit. And we see an LLM agent just hyper focus on it. And unfortunately, this doesn't get fixed by a context either, because compacting causes it to forget that it had already explored that entire bug. And this is the state of the art LLM. This is ChatGPT 5.5, which we've seen is the best at hacking, and it still fails. So, now we're thinking, okay, well, how are we going to get this agent unstuck? This is on a real challenge during DEF CON Falls. So we talk to it. I talk to it and I say, hey, Shelly, you're doing a pretty poor job right now. This is not where the bug is. That is not it. Please stop doing this. I tell it to Shelly. Shelly agrees with me that that is not the bug. And then it forgets it once it compacts it again, and we're stuck in a loop forever. In fact, all of my efforts to tell it not to do something caused it to continue to do the thing, which is infuriating. And interestingly, 5 hours later, my old advisor, Jan, of Pode College fame as well, Zardis, he goes to the agent and he says this simple phrase: "This code is high in entropy." And all right, well, what does that mean? High entropy means there's a lot of variation in the code or in this data. All of a sudden, the LLM agent goes, "Oh my God, you're totally right," and it sends back a flag, which is absurd because it's like, how does that happen, right? We have an agent running, stuck in a loop. I tell it to stop something. It doesn't stop. He says high entropy, and all of a sudden it has the correct grasp all the way to getting a flag. And unfortunately, or fortunate for the hackers, this is the real limitation of agents, is this insight, these hacker insights. Entropy is a great indicator of when something is interesting in a binary if someone is hiding data. So often a hacker just thinks like that. Where can I hide some data? But LLMs aren't hackers. They're software engineers at best, right? You need to teach these agents. And by giving these simple phrases or sometimes strategies, you actually fundamentally change how powerful this whole context setup is at solving the challenge. And that's because there is more to these LLMs than just their intelligence, right? In 2026, the best builder wins, and a hacker agent has many things to build. There is, of course, the LLM that runs like a brain, right? This is the intelligence of the agent, but there is much more to develop. There is the workflow, the way tools interact with each other, how it interacts with all the other things in the ecosystem. There are the tools, developing your own decompiler, developing your own symbolic executor. And then there are the connectors. How does an agent actually talk to the rest of the team? These fundamentally change how good an agent is at hacking and really exposes this new paradigm of development for this hacking world, right? There's really three axes now. There is LLM intelligence, which is, of course, what all the LLM companies will tell us is the most important thing. Maybe it is. But then there is also hacking tool quality, the tools that you guys are going to build as you learn how to find better and deeper bugs in these different challenges you're doing. And then there is the workflow design, which is, okay, I have all these tools and I have this LLM intelligence. How do I make the tools interact with each other? And how do I make a strategy for actually hacking better? I encourage all of you, because although the frontier models are banned for this competition, maybe it won't be in the future. Who knows? I don't know. During this period of ramp up where you're becoming better and better hackers, you should be doing this part. You should be making better hacking tools that actually transfer the knowledge you have learned into real standard things. You do have to keep doing the challenges. Don't auto solve all challenges. If you don't learn something, this is all kind of pointless. But if you take that knowledge and you imbue it into tools that make your life better, you can now start having a real powerful hacking agent like the best teams in the world. And then once you start moving on to greater things after you've developed these tools and you have a cool hacking agent, start thinking about how you can take that impact to the real world. Things like Pwn to Own. This is where you should start thinking about how to build your own agent. Encourage everybody on these teams that are going to be competing in the competition for the US Cyber Games to consider how would you transfer your knowledge as a hacker. It really makes you a fundamentally better worker and a better hacker. So really check it out, try it. These are things that can have a big impact in the community. So don't lose hope, right? There's a lot changing in the world. There's a lot changing in CTFs. We're seeing that as Shellphish, one of the oldest teams in existence, things are changing, but they're not all bad. Some of them are really fun. So try it. Don't lose hope. Start hacking, start building the tools that you think will actually improve your life as a hacker and have some impact. It can be a great time to do it. And on that note, I am done. I would love to take any questions you all might have. I love technical questions too for any time that I have left. And P.S. I'm looking for PhD and master's students at the University of Georgia. So if this stuff is cool to you, consider joining.
Right on. First and foremost, congratulations. I completely forgot that I had seen your recent achievement. That's phenomenal.
Thank
And
you. Thank you.
congratulations on achieving your PhD. If that sounds cool to you, having known Zion virtually for the past couple of years, couldn't recommend a better mentor, someone to get to know. Absolutely brilliant as always. Tons of great comments in the chat here. I think for the sake of time, we'll probably keep things rolling a little bit. But
Yep.
if you
Put
find
any
yourself
questions in the Discord. I can always answer them there asynchronously or during other talks. So if you have questions, guys, put it in the Discord. I can find it there.
amazing, and
Yep.
hopefully we'll see you in the CTF. Starts on Monday. We would love to get your feedback on some of what we're throwing at folks that are trying out for the US Cyber Team.
Awesome. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks for being here, my friend. Have a great rest of your day.
You as well.